The new student. The gleaming spires of the Galactic Academy of Sciences pierced the violet sky of Centauri Prime, a beacon of knowledge in the vast expanse of space. Students from 1,000 worlds milled about its grounds, a cacophony of languages and customs blending into the universal pursuit of understanding. Amidst this diversity, Zara stood out like a supernova in a starless night. Her pale skin, dark hair, and curious brown eyes marked her as unmistakably human. She clutched her datapad, trying to appear nonchalant as she navigated the crowded corridors of the Academy's main hall. "Excuse me," she said, approaching a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin. "Could you point me towards the xenobiology lab?" The alien's luminous eyes widened, pupils contracting to thin slits. You're the human, aren't you?" it asked, voice tinged with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Zara nodded, used to this reaction by now. "Yes, I'm Zara, just transferred from Earth." A ripple of whispers spread through the nearby students. "A Deathworlder," someone murmured. "I can't believe they let one in." The iridescent being seemed to collect itself. "Xenobiology is 2 levels down, 3rd corridor on the right. I'm Lux, by the way. Pleasure to meet you, Zora of Earth." As Zara made her way to class, she could feel the stairs boring into her back. She'd known it wouldn't be easy being the first human to attend the academy, but the reality was more intense than she'd imagined. The xenobiology lab was a marvel of alien architecture, with organic-looking workstations that seemed to grow from the floor. Students of various species were already settling in as Zora entered. She noticed a group of bulky, 4-armed beings huddled together, their exoskeletons clicking as they whispered among themselves. Professor Xylos, a Zorlak known for his brilliant mind, and 8 independently moving eyes, called the class to order. "Today," he announced, his translator device conveying his clicks and whistles into standard galactic, "we have a unique opportunity. We are joined by a representative of a species many of you have only heard about in rumors and legends. Zara, would you please introduce yourself?" Zara felt her heart race as she stood. "Hello, everyone. I'm Zora Chen, from Earth. I'm honored to be here and excited to learn alongside you all." A tentacled student raised an appendage. "Is it true that humans can survive temperatures that would boil most species alive?" Before Zara could answer, another student chimed in. "I heard they can regrow lost limbs." "That's ridiculous," a crystalline being scoffed. "No carbon-based life form could possibly." "Enough," Professor Xylos interrupted. "We are scientists, not gossip-mongers. We will have ample opportunity to study and understand our new classmate through proper observation and experimentation." As the professor began his lecture on interspecies genetic compatibility, Zora couldn't help but notice the mix of curiosity and skepticism directed her way. She knew that humans had a reputation as being from a death world, a planet so harsh that it seemed impossible for intelligent life to evolve there. But surely, once they got to know her, they'd see she wasn't so different from them. The class progressed, with Zara answering questions about human biology when called upon. She explained concepts like immunization and the human digestive system, marveling at how things she took for granted seemed almost magical to her classmates. As the session ended, Zara gathered her things, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation about the days to come. A shadow fell over her desk, and she looked up to see one of the 4-armed beings looming over her. "Human," it said, its voice a low rumble. "I am Korg of the Brachy. We are known as the strongest species in the galaxy. I find it hard to believe that a soft, 2-armed creature like you could survive on a world harsher than ours." Zara stood, meeting Korg's 4 eyes steadily. "Well, Korg of the Brachy, I guess we'll both learn a lot this semester. I'm looking forward to it." As she left the lab, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that her time at the academy would be more challenging and potentially more rewarding than she had ever imagined. Little did she know that the true tests of her abilities were yet to come, and that her presence would shake the foundations of galactic understanding. Physical trials. The following week brought the Academy's annual physical assessment, a comprehensive evaluation designed to measure the capabilities of each species represented in the student body. For Zara, it was an opportunity to showcase human potential. For her classmates, it was a chance to satisfy their curiosity about the supposed Deathworlder in their midst. The assessment arena was a vast, dome-shaped structure that could simulate various gravitational conditions and environmental factors. Students gathered in groups, stretching limbs and appendages in preparation for the trials ahead. Professor Xylos addressed the assembled crowd, his 8 eyes swiveling to take in every face. Today's trials will push you to your limits. Remember, this is not a competition between species, but a celebration of galactic diversity. Zara couldn't help but notice the skeptical glances thrown her way. Korg and his Brachy friends stood nearby, their massive arms folded across their chests. First up, announced the professor, the Gravity Well Challenge. A section of the arena floor sank, forming a deep pit. At the bottom sat a large metallic cube. Each participant must enter the well, which will be set to 3 times standard gravity, retrieve the cube, and return it to the surface. The cube's mass will be adjusted based on the average strength of each species. Zara watched as various students attempted the challenge. The Brachy performed impressively, their 4 arms allowing them to distribute the cube's weight effectively. Other species struggled, some unable to lift the cube at all under the increased gravitational pull. When it was Zora's turn, she could hear the murmurs of doubt from the crowd. She took a deep breath and stepped into the well. Immediately, she felt the crushing weight of the enhanced gravity. Her muscles strained as she made her way to the cube. Gripping the edges of the metal box, Zora braced herself and lifted. To her surprise, while heavy, it wasn't unbearable. She realized that growing up in Earth's gravity had given her an advantage she hadn't considered. With deliberate steps, Zara carried the cube back to the surface. As she emerged from the well, the arena fell silent. Professor Xylos blinked rapidly, checking his instruments. "Remarkable," he said. "The human has lifted a weight calibrated for Brachy physiology." Korg stepped forward, his exoskeleton clicking in agitation. "Impossible. The instruments must be malfunctioning." "I assure you, they are not," replied Xylos. "It seems we have underestimated human capabilities." The next trial involved a test of speed and agility. Holographic obstacles appeared throughout the arena, requiring participants to navigate a complex course while avoiding rapidly moving barriers. Zara watched in awe as some of her classmates demonstrated incredible abilities. The serpentine slithered through gaps with fluid grace, while the avian aetheri soared over obstacles with ease. When her turn came, Zara focused on the course ahead. As soon as the signal was given, she burst into motion. Her reflexes, honed by years of sports and the daily challenges of Earth's varied environments, served her well. She ducked, jumped, and rolled, her movements a blur of efficiency. As she crossed the finish line, Zara realized she had completed the course in record time. The arena erupted in a mixture of cheers and disbelieving exclamations. Lux, the iridescent being she had met on her first day, approached her with wide eyes. "How did you move like that? I thought humans were, well, slower." Zara shrugged, catching her breath. "On Earth, we have to be ready for anything. Our planet throws a lot at us." The final trial of the day tested endurance. Participants were required to run on a treadmill-like device that adjusted its difficulty based on the user's performance. The goal was to maintain a steady pace for as long as possible under increasingly challenging conditions. Many students performed admirably, showcasing the unique adaptations of their species. The Brachy's stamina was impressive, their 4 legs allowing them to distribute the effort efficiently. The Aetheri's hollow bones and efficient respiratory systems gave them a natural advantage. When Zara's turn came, she started at a steady jog. As the difficulty increased, she found herself drawing on memories of long-distance runs back on Earth, of pushing through fatigue and discomfort. Hours passed, and the number of active participants dwindled. Zara kept running, her body operating on a mix of training, determination, and the innate human ability to persist in the face of adversity. Finally, as the last of her competitors dropped out, Zara found herself alone on the track. Her muscles burned, her lungs heaved, but she kept going. Professor Xylos finally called an end to the trial. "Enough," he said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and concern. "Zara, you can stop now. You've surpassed all previous records." As Zara slowed to a stop, she was met with a stunned silence. Even Korg seemed at a loss for words. Lux approached her, offering a container of electrolyte-rich fluid. "I don't understand," they said. "How can you do all this? You're not the strongest, or the fastest, or built for endurance like some species. Yet you excelled in every trial." Zara took a long drink before answering. "Humans, we're generalists, I guess. We're not the best at any one thing, but we're pretty good at a lot of things. And we're really good at not giving up." As the students filed out of the arena, the atmosphere had changed. The whispers about Zara now carried notes of respect and curiosity rather than skepticism. She had proven that humans were indeed capable of surviving on a death world, and perhaps even thriving because of it. But as Zara caught Korg's conflicted gaze, she realized that her display of ability had done more than just satisfy curiosity. It had challenged the established order of things at the Academy, and she couldn't help but wonder what consequences that might bring. Mental challenges. In the wake of the physical trials, the atmosphere at the Galactic Academy of Sciences had shifted palpably. Zara found herself the subject of intense curiosity, with students from various species approaching her with questions about Earth and human capabilities. However, she also sensed an undercurrent of unease, particularly from those who had previously considered their species at the top of the galactic hierarchy. It was in this charged environment that the Academy's mental challenges began. These tests were designed to evaluate problem-solving skills, adaptability, and cognitive functions across different species. For Zara, it was an opportunity to showcase that humans were more than just physically resilient. The first challenge took place in the Academy's holographic simulation chamber. Students entered one by one, faced with a series of puzzles that adapted based on their responses. Zara watched as her classmates emerged, some looking triumphant, others frustrated. When her turn came, Zara stepped into a swirling vortex of light that coalesced into a complex, three-dimensional maze. A disembodied voice explained the rules. Navigate the maze, collect key items, and reach the center. The catch: the maze would reconfigure itself every few minutes, and the physics within could change at any moment. Zara took a deep breath and began. She quickly realized that memorizing the layout was futile due to the constant changes. Instead, she focused on identifying patterns in the maze's transformations. Her human brain, evolved to recognize and adapt to changing environments, kicked into high gear. As she progressed, Zara encountered sections where gravity reversed, where time seemed to flow backwards, and where spatial dimensions didn't behave as expected. She drew upon her knowledge of Earth's diverse environments and the creative problem-solving skills that had allowed humanity to thrive in them. Outside the simulation, Professor Xylos and the other students watched Zara's progress on a large screen. Her approach was unlike anything they had seen before. Where others had tried to power through obstacles or meticulously plan each move, Zara seemed to flow with the changes, adapting on the fly. "Fascinating," murmured Xylos, his eyes blinking in rapid succession. "The human's cognitive flexibility is remarkable." Lux, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. It's as if she's not trying to conquer the maze, but to understand and work with it. After what seemed like hours, but was in reality only 45 minutes, Zara reached the center of the maze. As she emerged from the simulation, she was met with a mix of applause and astonished silence. "Congratulations, Zara," said Professor Xylos. "You've completed the maze in record time, and with an approach we've never seen before. Can you explain your thought process?" Zara, still catching her breath, considered for a moment. On Earth, we have a saying, the only constant is change. I guess I've internalized that. Instead of fighting against the maze's changes, I try to anticipate and use them to my advantage. The next challenge was a group exercise designed to test cooperation and communication across species. Students were divided into teams, each tasked with solving a complex diplomatic scenario involving multiple alien races with conflicting interests. Zara found herself in a team with Korg, Lux, and a slick named Zis. The scenario presented to them involved a disputed planet rich in a rare resource, with 3 different species claiming ownership. As they began discussing strategies, Zara noticed the others falling into predictable patterns based on their species' typical approaches. Korg advocated for a show of strength. Lux suggested a purely logical division of resources, and Zis proposed a complex system of rotating ownership. Wait, Zara interjected. What if we're looking at this the wrong way? Instead of dividing the planet, why don't we focus on what each species actually needs from it? Her teammates looked at her in surprise. Zara continued, on Earth, we've had to learn to share resources in space with not just different nations, but different species. Sometimes the best solution isn't about who owns what, but about how we can all benefit together. Over the next hour, Zara guided her team through a process of identifying the core needs and values of each species in the scenario. They crafted a proposal that involved shared stewardship of the planet, with each species contributing its unique strengths to a collaborative effort. When the teams presented their solutions, Zara's group stood out. Professor Xylos and the other instructors were visibly impressed by the innovative approach. This solution, Xylos said, his translator barely keeping up with his excited clicks, demonstrates a level of lateral thinking and empathy that is truly commendable. It's an approach that could have real-world applications in galactic diplomacy. As the day's challenges concluded, Zara found herself surrounded by classmates eager to discuss her methods. Even Korg, who had been skeptical of her abilities, seemed to be looking at her with newfound respect. I must admit, human, he rumbled, your mind works in ways I do not fully. Crisis management. The weeks following the mental challenges saw a shift in the Academy's dynamics. Zara found herself increasingly integrated into study groups and social circles, her unique perspective sought after by students and faculty alike. However, this newfound acceptance was about to be put to the ultimate test. It was a typical day at the Galactic Academy of Sciences when alarms began blaring throughout the campus. Red lights flashed in every corridor, and a computerized voice echoed through the halls. Emergency protocol activated. This is not a drill. All students and faculty report to designated safety zones immediately. Panic spread quickly as students of various species rushed to comply. Zara, who had been in the middle of a xenobiology lecture, found herself swept up in the chaos. As she made her way through the crowded corridors, she overheard snippets of frightened conversation. The containment field in Lab 12 has failed. Experimental organisms are loose in the East Wing. The defense systems are malfunctioning. Amidst the confusion, Zara spotted Lux trying to calm a group of younger students. She pushed her way through the crowd to join them. Lux, what's going on? Zara asked, raising her voice above the din. Lux's iridescent skin pulsed with anxiety. It's a disaster, Zara. A group of highly aggressive, genetically modified organisms have escaped from the high-security labs. They're resistant to most forms of containment, and they're spreading through the Academy's ventilation system. Zara's mind raced. Earth's history was full of stories of containment breaches and unexpected disasters. Humanity had learned, often the hard way, how to deal with crisis. We need to organize, Zara said, her voice carrying a calm authority that made others turn to listen. Lux, can you use your bioluminescence to signal other groups? We need to coordinate our efforts. Lux nodded, their skin beginning to pulse in a rhythmic pattern that cut through the chaos. Nearby students began to gather around them. Korg, Zara called out, spotting the Brachy towering above the crowd. We need your strength. Can you help secure the doors to prevent the organisms from spreading further? Korg moved towards them, his exoskeleton clicking with determination. I will do what I can, human. What is your plan? Zara quickly assessed their resources. We need to split into teams. One group to help evacuate the younger students and those less able to defend themselves. Another to assist in containing the spread of the organisms, and a third to try and find a way to neutralize the threat. As she spoke, Zara noticed Professor Xylos approaching, his 8 eyes darting around nervously. Miss Chen, I'm glad to see someone taking initiative. The situation is dire. These organisms adapt rapidly to any form of attack. Our standard containment measures are failing. Zara's mind flashed to Earth's long history of dealing with invasive species and rapidly evolving pathogens. Professor, do we have access to the organism's genetic data? And what about the Academy's environmental controls? Tylos blinked rapidly. Yes, we have their base genetic code, but it's mutating too fast for our systems to keep up. The environmental controls are operational, but that's it, Zora exclaimed. We don't need to attack the organisms directly. We need to change the environment to something they can't adapt to quickly enough. She turned to the gathered students. I need volunteers for a dangerous mission. We're going to access the environmental control systems and create a hostile atmosphere for these organisms. To her surprise, hands and various appendages shot up immediately. The fear in the air was gradually being replaced by a sense of purpose. Zara quickly organized the volunteers. She sent Korg and a team to secure critical areas and assist with evacuation. Lux was tasked with maintaining communication between groups using their bioluminescent abilities. Zis, the slick student, volunteered to navigate the ventilation system due to their serpentine physiology. As they worked, Zara explained her plan. On Earth, we've learned that sometimes the best way to deal with an invasive species is to alter the environment in ways they can't handle. We're going to rapidly cycle the temperature, humidity, and atmospheric composition in the affected areas. Professor Xylos looked skeptical. But won't that affect our own people as well? Zara nodded grimly. It will, but we're prepared for it. Humans have a saying, adapt or die. Right now, we need to adapt faster than those organisms. Over the next few hours, the Academy became a battleground of wits and will. Zara and her team worked tirelessly, adjusting environmental parameters, sealing off sections, and coordinating with other groups. The escaped organisms, faced with rapidly changing conditions, began to slow in their spread. Zara found herself pushing her limits, drawing on reserves of strength and endurance she didn't know she had. The hostile environments they created to combat the organisms were taxing on everyone, but Zara's experience with Earth's varied and often extreme conditions gave her an edge. As the crisis reached its peak, Zara made a risky decision. We need to lure the remaining organisms to a central location, she announced. I'll go in as bait. My physiology might be different enough to attract their attention. Despite protests from her friends, Zora entered one of the most heavily infested areas. Using a makeshift lure created from synthesized pheromones, she managed to draw the organisms into a large chamber. Once they were contained, she initiated a final extreme environmental shift that the organisms couldn't survive. Hours after the alarms first sounded, a weary but triumphant Zora emerged from the contaminated zone. The crisis was over. As emergency teams moved in to clean up, students and faculty gathered around Zora and her team. Professor Xylos approached, his expression a mix of awe and gratitude. Ms. Chin, Zora, I don't know how to thank you. Your quick thinking and leadership saved countless lives today. Zara, exhausted but relieved, managed a small smile. I just did what any human would do in a crisis. We adapt, we overcome. Korg stepped forward, his massive frame bowing slightly in respect. I was wrong about you, Zora of Earth. Your species may come from a death world, but you bring life and hope. You have earned the respect of the Brachy this day. As the adrenaline of the crisis faded, Zura looked around at her classmates. Beings from across the galaxy who had come together under her leadership. She realized that in facing this challenge, they had all learned something profound about humanity, about themselves, and about the true meaning of galactic cooperation. The Galactic Academy of Sciences would never be the same, and neither would the galaxy's perception of the Deathworlders known as humans. Changing perceptions. In the days following the crisis, the Galactic Academy of Sciences buzzed with a new energy. The halls that had once echoed with whispers of skepticism about the Deathworlder now resonated with tales of Zara's bravery and quick thinking. The incident had not only averted a disaster, but had also catalyzed a shift in how the galactic community viewed humans. As the Academy resumed its normal operations, Zura found herself at the center of attention. Students from all species sought her out, eager to learn more about Earth and human adaptability. Even the most skeptical individuals, like Korg, had become some of her staunchest supporters. One morning, as Zara entered the main lecture hall, she was surprised to find it packed with students, faculty, and even some off-world visitors. Professor Xylos stood at the podium, his 8 eyes gleaming with excitement. "Ah, Zara, perfect timing," he said, gesturing for her to join him at the front. "We've been waiting for you." Confused but curious, Zora made her way to the podium. As she looked out at the sea of faces, she recognized not only her classmates, but also several high-ranking officials from various galactic institutions. Professor Xylos cleared his throat, or what passed for a throat in his species, and addressed the assembly. "Esteemed colleagues, honored guests, and dear students, we are gathered here today to recognize an extraordinary individual, and by extension, an extraordinary species." He turned to Zara, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "Zara Chen of Earth, your actions during our recent crisis have opened our eyes to the true potential of humanity. We had classified Earth as a death world, assuming its inhabitants to be mere survivors of a harsh environment. We could not have been more wrong." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Xylos continued, "In light of recent events, the Galactic Scientific Council has decided to reclassify Earth. It is no longer to be known merely as a death world, but as a crucible world, a planet that forges life capable of thriving in the face of adversity." Zara felt a swell of pride, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. She thought of the long history of her species, the challenges faced, the obstacles overcome, the relentless drive to explore and understand. Xylos wasn't finished. Furthermore, the Council has decided to establish a new exchange program. We will be sending students and researchers to Earth to study human adaptability and problem-solving firsthand. In return, more humans will be invited to join institutions across the galaxy, bringing their unique perspectives to our collective pursuit of knowledge. The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause. Zara saw Lux's skin shimmer with excitement, while Korg's exoskeleton vibrated in what she had learned was a sign of approval. As the applause died down, Xylos turned to Zara. "Ms. Chen, would you like to say a few words?" Zara stepped up to the podium, her heart racing. She looked out at the diverse assembly, beings from across the galaxy, each with their own unique adaptations and intelligences. Yet they were all united in this moment, eager to hear from a representative of humanity. "Thank you, Professor Xylos, and thank you all," Zara began. "I stand here not just as an individual, but as a representative of my species and my planet. Earth has shaped us, challenged us, and taught us valuable lessons." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Humans are not the strongest, or the fastest, or the most naturally gifted in any single area, but we are adaptable. We persevere. We look at problems from different angles, and we never stop trying to find solutions." Zara's voice grew stronger as she continued. "But our greatest strength, I believe, is our ability to work together, not just with each other, but with those who are different from us. The crisis we faced here at the Academy wasn't solved by human strength alone. It was solved by galactic cooperation, by combining our various strengths and overcoming our individual weaknesses. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes, or eye equivalents, of her fellow students. I'm honored by this recognition, but I'm even more excited about what it represents. The opportunity for humans to learn from you, and for you to learn from us. Together, we can push the boundaries of science, of understanding, and of what's possible. As Zara concluded her speech, the hall erupted in applause once more. She saw nods of approval, gestures of respect, and expressions of excitement on faces both familiar and alien. In the following weeks, the impact of the events at the Galactic Academy of Sciences rippled across the galaxy. News of the Crucible world and its inhabitants spread, sparking curiosity and revaluation of long-held beliefs. For Zara, life at the Academy took on a new dimension. She found herself not just a student, but also a teacher, sharing insights about human history, culture, and adaptability. She worked closely with Korg, Lux, and others to develop new protocols for crisis management, blending the strengths of various species. The xenobiology curriculum was expanded to include in-depth studies of human physiology and psychology. Zara couldn't help but smile when she overheard a group of alien students marveling at the concept of human endurance running, or the complexity of human social structures. As the academic year drew to a close, Zara stood on one of the Academy's observation decks, gazing out at the stars. Lux joined her, their bioluminescent patterns reflecting the starlight. "What are you thinking about, Zara?" Lux asked. Zara smiled, her eyes fixed on a faint, blue-white dot in the distance. "Earth. I'm thinking about home," she replied. "And about how much bigger home has become." Lux's skin rippled in understanding. "You've changed things, you know. The way we see humans, the way we see ourselves. The galaxy feels bigger somehow, more full of possibilities." Zara nodded, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "That's the thing about humans," she said softly. "We don't just adapt to our environment. We adapt our environment to us. And now, our environment is the entire galaxy." As they stood there, watching the stars, Zara felt a sense of anticipation for what was to come. Humanity had taken its first true steps into the galactic community, not as survivors of a harsh world, but as innovators, problem solvers, and bridge builders. The term Deathworlder had once been whispered with fear and awe. Now, it was spoken with respect and curiosity. Zara knew that the journey was just beginning, but she was certain of one thing. The galaxy would never be the same again, and neither would humanity.